Hello, and welcome back to the Going Off Track podcast. I'm Kathryn, that's Emily, and wow, that was a little bit of a disappointing overall COTA weekend, huh?
Should we snooze fest? Like, absolute. Ugh. Just, weekend. It's just, ugh.
Yeah, that was not the COTA we were hoping for from an entertainment standpoint. From a Max Verstappen keeps winning standpoint, it was great, but from the race sucked, and also the sprint was not good.
I mean, Kathryn,
yeah.
Are you kidding me? Majority of the race under safety car? How can that not be exciting?
I know, right? But don't be afraid. We have 9 more chances to have a good COTA because they just announced this morning that COTA is extending to 2034.
I mean, this makes sense. It's the best race we have in the US. I think Miami and Vegas need to leave. We've talked about this. But COTA, is generally, besides this year, produces a great race weekend. Austin does a really great job. Everyone loves coming to, Texas. And I think it's a huge sign how all the teams, do special liveries and do a ton of big pop-ups, that are very Texas and, whatever. It's just, it pulls in a lot. And I think it's really nice to have, a perfectly timed race. So I love to see it stay. But they have to heat this one. I think we'll have Austin forever and ever. And I love it.
Yeah, I think it's also the best for average fan engagement. We've talked about how from an accessibility standpoint, Vegas and Miami, they are accessible, but COTA is just more accessible to a greater spectrum of Formula One fan compared to the other 2 races that we have. And also it's the one that we feel more naturally that we like. We have to force ourselves to find things that we like about Miami and about Vegas, and we have to they force ways to try to make it exciting, whereas COTA is what you're going to get out of COTA.
Yeah. And even for the accessibility thing, we went to Miami and we didn't stay close and the traffic was absolutely horrible. Everything is expensive in Miami. And same with Vegas. You have to stay in Vegas because it's literally in the middle of the desert. Where else are you going to stay? Whereas Austin, they pretty much built a huge road just to get out there. It's so far out of the city and it's only F1 traffic is going, which is nice. The whole city doesn't shut down. But there's also so many surrounding areas that you can stay, which makes it more affordable. And Texas just in general is cheaper than Miami.
Right.
So it's just nice from the visiting people aspect of it. I was around it all weekend, so I was in Austin actually, not at the race, but it wasn't like it was in Miami where everything was shut down and traffic was terrible. I was still going around everywhere and you would never know there's an F1 race unless you knew. So
yeah, I mean, was there probably worse traffic the closer you got to COTA itself? Yes, but
it's also way out by the airport.
Right.
Nothing's happening out there except for F1. So
yeah. Did you see anything interesting on the road today when you were driving around?
Well, yeah, that's my off-track moment, Kathryn, but we can just do it at the top of the podcast.
I mean, if we want, we can do it now. Or we can save it.
No, we can do it now. So I'm driving south on 35 this morning, and all of a sudden I see a ton of police lights. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's an accident. 35 is going to shut down. This is terrible. If you've driven on 35 through Austin, you know what I'm talking about. But then I was like, they're moving. And then I was like, there's a really large vehicle that they're escorting. And they, take the turn off onto the road that brings you out to the track. And it was the Williams team bus. So, their big team bus, there's a ton of people on the bus. I'm telling myself that JV was on the bus and I was within, a 50, 50 feet from stardom, if you will. But yeah, it was pretty cool to see. It had their big logo on it and, yeah, taking it out there. So, it's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. We saw a few team vehicles when we were in Miami, and it's always fun to be I wonder who's in that SUV that's being, that has a police escort. It's probably a persona. So that is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was awesome. So, cool for me, not a cool weekend for Williams. Or
Not
day,
so
I
much.
guess. Weekend, yes. I will say it was an exciting weekend. They still, Carlos got on podium for the sprint, but kind of a rough day for them today, unfortunately.
Yeah. Speaking of rough situations, the other big piece of news this week that we haven't had a chance to touch on yet that we're going to talk about now is, unfortunately, for a bunch of really dumb reasons, we are stuck with Mohammed Ben Sulayem as the FIA president for this next term, and I hate it.
Yeah, not super exciting. I'm very uncertain on how that's gonna change the landscape of F1 or if it'll do nothing at all. Like the best case scenario is like he just does nothing. You know what I
Right.
mean?
If he stops talking and just like focuses on the day-to-day growth of motorsport, whatever. But if he keeps doing things to get himself into the news because he likes to stay relevant, that's where the problem is. But the other problem is we have seen over the last couple of years that he has been consolidating power and getting rid of oversight things that had been built into keeping the FIA democratic. And one of the more obscure election rules is why former steward Tim Mayer was forced to drop out, which is that candidates have to provide a list of vice president candidates from each region around the world, which makes no sense to me, but this is the FIA, so of course it doesn't make any sense. And the problem is that there is only one eligible vice president candidate in the South America region, who happens to be Bernie Ecclestone's wife, who has already committed to supporting Mohammed Ben Sulayem. So with nobody else available in South America, that is why Mayer was forced to step aside, which is like, first you
So
have
dumb.
First, you have Carlos Sainz Sr., who stepped away because the environment was not good for him, which we know means that he and Carlos's career was threatened. And now we have
Well,
this, and
let's not say
allegedly
we
threatened.
know.
Allegedly threatened. You're right. This based off the statement that Senior released. It sounds like it could have been a threat to Carlos Sainz Jr.'s career. But now with this,
But
it all kind of, I don't like it.
Just pause for a second though. That's like so egregious to start threatening careers just to keep your presidency of the FIA. Like I understand what we're saying and like how it sounds, but like it's just wild if you think about it.
With everything that FIFA has gotten away with over the years, it does not surprise me in any way that the FIA could be as similarly corrupt. And the other thing that I think we could potentially see is we could see the F1 teams attempt to break away from the FIA. It's not like this would be the first time it would have happened. If you've watched, first of all, if you watch the Braun documentary on Hulu, it talks about the reason why the first attempt to break away fell apart, because Braun had to play ball in order to financially survive through the 2009 season. So, and the teams, I think, are in a better place financially, that if the teams wanted to band together and say, screw it, we're making our own league, they could do that if Mohammed Ben Sulayem keeps messing around with the FIA.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. So,
yeah.
When is the next election?
It's at the end of this year.
No, but when's the next one after that?
Next, I think it's 4 years. Is the term 4 years? 3, 4, something. Not soon enough.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, if we get through a regulation with him or what. But
yeah,
I mean, we'll see.
I don't remember. Yeah.
So speaking of contract extensions, if you will, we're assuming he's winning the election because he's the only one running. Yep. Apple is actually taking over the F1 broadcasting rights in the US. So currently ESPN has the broadcasting rights, so we see it on all of the ESPN family of networks. Even ESPN News sometimes gets our free practices because no one wants to watch it, which is fair. But it will be moving to Apple, so that will be streaming. And it's a 5-year deal. I believe it's beginning next year, so in 2026 season. And they are paying a lot of money for this. So they are now paying $140 million a year, not total contract, a year for the streaming rights, which is absolutely crazy. I don't get it either because now everyone's going to have to buy Apple TV and it's really frustrating. I understand it's to like get viewers or whatever, but it's just like
I
really frustrating to me.
As somebody who already has Apple TV, I don't like this. I think that and it's not that I don't like it because I have a problem with the product that Apple TV provides. It's whatever. But my greater issue is ESPN is available on basic cable, and I still, as somebody who still has basic cable, I still think that there is enough of a market, especially in the United States, for traditional broadcast, and to have F1 at the current peak of its relevancy in the United States move from basically everyone can access it, you know someone who has cable who has access to ESPN, to who do you know has an Apple TV subscription. And I
Yeah.
don't think Apple is going to get these boost in subscribers from F1 fans and from the United States F market that they think they're going to get.
I agree. I think it's just gonna be really frustrating. And like even like ESPN is part of like the ABC and Disney family too. So if you have a Disney Plus account, like you can also watch it.
Right.
You don't even need basic cable, which I know some people don't have, but it's not like it's, hard to watch. Let's put it that way. And then it's like if you go to a bar to watch it, are they gonna have Apple TV for
Right.
you to watch this? Like I think we're gonna see a dip in viewership, honestly. I really do.
Yeah, and I think it will be significant, and it will be significant right off the bat. Now, they did announce that there will be select races that will be available streaming for free, but that's what's that going to do? Like, that's not going to, that's not going to be the thing that makes someone say, okay, I'm going to subscribe to Apple TV. Like, if you're not already in, like, I got it years ago and just haven't bothered to get rid of it because I still watch Ted Lasso or whatever. But I just think that it's not the best decision. And I think what's even worse is now, in order to access F1 TV Premium in the United States, you have to access it through Apple TV. So right now I have a cable subscription because I always have cable, because as somebody who watches the amount of sports I do, I keep it for the sports package. But I also have F1 TV because, among other things, F1 TV has all the archives of all the races. And one of these days, I will actually finish watching the 2010 season, and we'll have
I
the
don't
sequel
believe
to.
you.
I
I
don't
don't
believe me
believe you.
either, but maybe I'll do it in the off season, to a sequel to the 2016 watch that I did. But that also is going to take away from a lot of people who, if you don't have cable and you don't have ESPN, you did have F1 TV, and F1
Yeah.
TV was a lot cheaper than a monthly subscription to Apple TV. So I don't like it. I do like that it looks like the plan is to continue basically pulling the Sky commentary. So we're not going to have, Joe Schmo and,
Danica
Bob the
Patrick.
Builder, Danica Patrick. It's still going to be David Croft, Martin Brundle, unfortunately. I mean, Karun Chandok, Ted Kravitz, but
if they get rid of the Sky Sports people, like I'm boycotting. I'll go back
find a way to get a Sky account like that.
Oh no, I have one, and I used the same flat in London that I found on Zillow to put in my ITV and my Sky account when I was in Argentina, because I had a lot of time on my hands and I wanted to watch Love Island like real time. So
sure. Yeah, so it's
I can share my logins with you, Kathryn, is what I'm saying.
Thank you so much. Not that we endorse password sharing, because password sharing is bad and steals money from Netflix or whatever. But and speaking of Netflix, Drive to Survive is not affected by this move to Apple TV, so we will still have Drive to Survive on Netflix. I just still don't like it. And I like this won't affect my ability to watch Formula One races, but I'm sure it will affect like my friend who I was talking about the race with this morning.
It'll affect my viewing experience.
Your viewing experience.
I don't have F1 TV because I already have every subscription under the sun. So like, yes, I do have Apple TV, but like half the time it makes me re-log in because something happened, and then it's like I'm not near my phone and it pushes a weird notification and whatever. It's really annoying. And even when I travel, like it's not easy to use Apple TV when you travel versus like ESPN is. So it's just kind of annoying. I don't love it.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how this is going to go, especially because Apple is paying so much money, and I really want to see what these viewership numbers are going to be. I obviously don't think that that's going to be, publicized in any regularity, but I do not think that this was a good investment for Formula One to make. And I could be wrong.
I mean,
ask
for
me
them,
again in a year, but
for them, like, it's fine. You know what I
well, I
mean?
mean,
Like,
they're
the
getting
US is
140 million a year allegedly.
right, and the US like isn't, to be honest, is not their largest market.
But it's
So
significant enough that
it is
they're not going
significant
to
and
want to
it's
see
growing.
losses.
No, they won't. But if they're, making an extra $60 million a year, oh no, we lost a few 100,000 people. Like,
Yeah, but the
makes
other
up for
thing
it.
is they're not going to be able to make up for it in things like actual in-race attendance, because if people stop watching Formula One, they're not going to go to a race just to be like, oh, I don't know what's happening in F1 this season, but I'm going to go to, I'm going to go to Miami, I'm going to go to Vegas, I'm going to go to COTA and just have a day, have a weekend.
Or this is all part of their plan. They're like, we're gonna go to Apple, get $60 more million a year. It's gonna be a shitty product, so people are gonna be like, I'd rather go to the race than watch it at home. So then they're double dipping, Kathryn. Like, business mind. Come on. Come on.
I'm not quite sure. Like, obviously we'll see. Let's check back in a year. I mean, let's check back in 6 months, once we get to next season. But I am heavily skeptical. I know that, if ESPN wasn't willing to pony up, then obviously they're not willing to pony up. That's fine. But this I don't think that a major sport like Formula One is the move to go from, a cable broadcast network to a streaming only network.
Yeah, I mean, it could also be an ESPN thing too, though, because they have cut back on a lot of things. Like, over the last, 10, 15 years, they've really let go of talent. They've cut down their
ESPN's
programming.
finances are in the toilet, all things considered. Like, they are not
they pretty much operate at a loss. And so I think, they couldn't do it. And F1 is growing and they can demand more money for this, and they couldn't afford it. So I think it's good that they landed somewhere, because
right,
what if it was just,
exactly.
we can't find anyone, so I mean, I don't know, we'll see. But
yeah, I don't blame ESPN for this, because like we said, ESPN has been dropping sports coverage, dropping championship coverage, left, right, and center. Personnel they have been cutting because they are financially not very stable. So it's not
those cord cutters, man.
It's not a good sign for ESPN, and I also don't think it's a good sign for Formula One.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, let's jump into this weekend at COTA. So let's start with the sprint. It was all under safety car. Not all of it, most of it. Nothing super exciting happened. Except, well, it depends on how you look at it, right? The McLarens murder-suicided, and we're both out. And Carlos ended up on the podium. So it was good all in all. And Max made up a ton of points in the Drivers' Championship. So
yeah,
I think, even though it was, under safety car for most of it, and it ended under safety car, I think the sprint was the highlight of my weekend.
Oh, absolutely. The sprint was like the first lap of the sprint, particularly turn one, was the highlight of the weekend, I think, for most people. And whether you're a McLaren fan or if you're not a McLaren fan, it gave us something, whereas everything else gave us nothing.
Yeah. And then you have George in P2 just being like,
George
yes,
is just there.
I'm here. And I'm like, George, settle down.
George is just so excited when he's relevant. He's so excited.
I know. It drives me insane. Okay, and then we move on to the actual race, which, honestly, I almost fell asleep during it. It was really uneventful.
Yeah, it was one of those I wouldn't call it a typical Max Verstappen dominating a drive off into the sunset like 2021 2023 type of race, but Max was pretty much gone and out of the equation. And it was really just about Lando v. Charles. And Lando v. Charles was exciting for the beginning of the race, and then for a little bit at lap, 52? And that was all she wrote, and there was really nothing in between.
See, I knew Charles was going to be on the podium. I called it.
Yeah.
I almost had the podium if I would have picked Lando instead of Oscar.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
But anyway, to reopen the Max Verstappen record book portion of the podcast, which we really haven't touched into much this year, the career win number 68, and his 122nd podium. He is now tied with our favorite Sebastian Vettel for P3 all time, between Michael Schumacher at 155 podiums and Lewis Hamilton, who currently has the leading 202, which is a lot. But most importantly, Max has now cut his deficit to 40 points behind Oscar Piastri and 26 points behind Lando Norris. So game on continues.
I am all for a Max Drivers Championship now. Like, I'm sold. Like, I'm all in on Max. Like, obviously I want Oscar to win, but Max. I just need him to do Super Max things. And I just want it just to be shoved in Zach Brown's face of like, you did this. This is because of you, buddy.
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts. Like, obviously, I am a professional thinker, but I think that what McLaren has done with their insistence all season of giving both of their drivers a chance, to the detriment of the fact that that Max Verstappen is coming like the T-Rex in Jurassic Park, and he's coming for you. But I also do think that based on the damage that they have done to Oscar's psyche, that it is too late for them to all of a sudden decide, okay, now we have to support Oscar. Like, it is too late for them to be like, oh, well, we have to support the championship leader now. They're hanging out Oscar to dry, and also being like, oh, sweet baby Lando, here's everything support. And they've also been talking all weekend about the consequences that Lando faced after last race, which I'm pretty sure the consequences that they talked about all weekend were he was sent to bed without supper or without dessert for a couple of days. I don't know. They're never going to say what the consequences are, and I don't think the consequences were consequential.
Yeah. No, I don't either. But
yeah,
whatever. They're gonna just they're gonna make up new shit every day just to, walk back comments and just not piss people off. But anyways, I'm all about Max winning now. Also, with this weekend, again, we said there was lots of points on the table. A lot of teams did rack up points, and the race for P2 in the Constructors Championship now is getting even tighter. So there's 10 points between second place with Mercedes and fourth place with Red Bull, third place obviously being Ferrari. So yeah, that's also getting very, very close. Which is exciting.
that
we all
always
know McLaren won, but
nobody cares about that anymore. But
we're looking for P2 now.
This is millions of dollars in prize money. So yes, McLaren has won the championship, but they're all fighting for significant amounts of the prize pot at the end of the season. So Mercedes finished with, I believe, 16 points this weekend, and that really allowed Red Bull, obviously it's primarily Max, so Yuki did score points this weekend, and Ferrari also shot up. As we continue down the stretch, it's going to be important to keep an eye on where these teams are going to finish, especially when you want to be in the top three. Like, no one wants to be P4, so to see who's going to end up being P2, P3 is going to be significant.
How funny is it going to be when Red Bull, leapfrogs everyone and gets P2, and Max wins the Drivers' Championship, and Christian Horner was fired for performance?
Yeah, but also, can we talk about the fact that this turnaround started, and Laurent Mekies would be the first person to be like, it's not because of me, but this all started after Laurent Mekies took over.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying. They canned him because they didn't think that they were going to have a good year, and then as soon as they got rid of him, they started turning things around. So it's like, well, clearly something going on.
Okay. Yeah, so I agree, and that is hilarious. But also going into the midfield fight for P6, like we've said, when you get into the midfield, you're not guaranteed points every single week. So every point that a team gets, you usually get one team versus another getting points. So VCarb didn't have points this weekend. Aston Martin as many or at all. Aston Martin did, so that's really tight between them. There's only 3 points. VCarb has 72, and Aston Martin currently has 69. And then you have Stake, which Hulk keeps fighting to figure out a way to get back into the points ever since, his podium in Silverstone. So he's back in the points. Stake is 10 points back with 59. So there's still a chance to see a lot of movement towards, the lower portion of the midfield, whereas, Williams is just stuck in no man's land in P5.
But I'm happy that they're there. Like, I love that they're in P5. I love that they've, really made a big jump this year.
Ahead of schedule.
Exactly, yeah. And, like, they can't compete with, Red Bull and Mercedes and Ferrari yet. I want to say a big yet. Because I think next year, it'll be good.
Yeah, I think that, we've talked a lot about, like, James Vowles came in with a plan, and Drive to Survive last year showed us that, like, last year, 2024, their goal was P8. And so I'm not sure what the goal is this year. They didn't make their goal last year because they finished P9, but to go from P9 to P5 in one season is significant. And especially with the amount of points that they've been able to rack up, which is like the most points Williams has scored in like a decade or something.
Combined.
Yeah.
I think it's combined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, super exciting for them. I will say, like, I feel like Albon's performance lately has been a little disappointing. Maybe that's just me, but I think it's exciting to see Carlos up on the podium. But I want more out of Alex. I feel like he carried the team, like, the first half of the season, and now Carlos is starting to do better. But I feel like Alex, I don't know, something's going on there. But hopefully
I want to see them successful at the same time, because you're right. It was Alex at the beginning while Carlos was learning the car, and that took forever. And now Carlos had a podium, and now he's at a sprint podium, and he's obviously he DNF'd in the Grand Prix race, but he has been performing better, bringing in the points that Alex really hasn't been. They've been both of the cars have been struggling in qualifying. I think that Mexico is a track that will suit them pretty well, so hopefully they can both be successful.
I agree. Talking about being successful and a turnaround for this season, Yuki did really well this weekend. He was in the points for, the Grand Prix and in the sprint.
Yeah, I was really impressed with his performance. Obviously, it's not to the caliber of like what Red Bull expects and what you expect out of a Red Bull driver, but for what Yuki has been trying to do and doing, and the him versus Lawson mind games, this is really exciting for Yuki.
Well, yeah, and he contributed 4 points this weekend, which as the
I think
lead
it's
is only
6.
Did he do 6? Okay, so he contributed 6 points, which is really exciting. But also, like, you have 10 points between P2 and P4, so any point at this point matters. And so if he can help contribute at least a little bit to what Max is already doing, I think that's huge.
Yeah, it's massive. Sorry, it's more than 6 points actually. It is, show me the race results.
Well, he got 2 from the sprint, and he would have gotten 4 for P7.
Two for this and 6 for P7. So he got 8,
which is like 8 points.
Which is like 2/3 of what he had already had coming into the weekend. So it's definitely, trending in the right direction. I think Helmut Marko said that they're going to make more decisions on Max Verstappen's teammate for 2026 after Mexico. So that's going to put a lot of pressure on mostly just Isaac Hadjar and Yuki Tsunoda, but also Liam Lawson has to do well unless he wants to be replaced by Arvid Lindblad.
Yeah.
Which is a possibility.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm done speculating with seats because it's
because we don't know.
Who knows? Yeah. And then someone else who did good this weekend, and I'll take this one so you don't have to say nice things about him. But Lewis Hamilton is the first driver to score 5,000 points in his career, which, like, that's a lot of points. That's a lot of races. I mean, he, has been around for a long time, 7-time world champion, like, obviously is going to have a lot of points, but it's kind of cool for him to be, you know, the only driver to do that. And honestly, he may be the only one ever, because Max isn't going to race as long as he is. So, and I feel like he's the only other driver of the current pack that could get to 5,000. And I don't think he will, just because I think he'll retire. He won't have as long of a career.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Max is already in P2 in total career points at 3,329 and a half. And like you said, Max isn't going to spend, however many seasons to get almost 2,000 more points to overtake that. And obviously the point system has changed over the years, so that the scale doesn't match with what the scale was 10, 20, 30 years ago. But 5,000 is still, like, you have to win a lot of races to rack up.
Or do well in a lot of races even.
Yeah, and apparently so Lewis is averaging 13.35 points per Grand Prix. Max is averaging more. Max is averaging 14.6. But in the top 20 drivers of all time, there are 4 drivers who are averaging more than 10 points per Grand Prix. Lewis, Max Verstappen, Sebastian Vettel, and Oscar Piastri are the only 4 that average that many points per race.
I mean, Oscar. See, this is the thing. Oscar's so good.
Yeah.
This pisses me off. All right,
I know,
we have to talk about something else before I get mad.
Yeah.
Last but not least, before we jump into predictions, so it came out after the race. Carlos did get hit with a 5-place grid drop for Mexico City, and he also got 2 points on his super license for the incident with Kimi, which I think is kind of annoying, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, it was Carlos's fault. It was lucky that Kimi was able to continue in the race, considering these cars are so, want to say, delicate that, like, if you sneeze the wrong way, a front wing will pop off.
I was just gonna say you'll lose your front wing.
but then sometimes it's like Kimi's tires were covered in gravel and he didn't have a puncture. And I don't, like, sometimes it just, like, is really weird like that. You can get hit a certain way and you lose half of your side pod, and then you get hit another way and, like, everything's fine.
Yeah, it's super weird.
Yeah. But, fortunately, Carlos isn't, like, in the running of, like, we are concerned about him having to sit out a race, because he's nowhere near the magic number of 12. Ollie Behrman is still the closest. He currently has 10, though he has a couple points that will drop off in November. But because he got points when he was subbing in for Kevin Magnussen at Haas last year.
I remember that,
which is just funny.
Yeah, and it's just kind of sad too, because I think Mexico City is one that they do really well at, or at least he historically has, and I think it's a track that suits Williams. So it's just sad that he's already, like, starting, on the back foot. But yeah, who knows? All right, cool. Let's get into COTA. So we did predictions for sprint race and the Grand Prix. So, and we, had a lot of opportunities to take home points this weekend, and we didn't, which is, very a lot of points, Kathryn. We each got 1 point.
I mean,
which doesn't change the standings.
Us getting a single point is more than we've gotten in a while.
Fair.
So. Fair.
Okay, so with that, sprint pole was Max. Kathryn picked Max and got a point. Sprint podium, we were close with George. We both brought George into the mix. Unfortunately, no one saw Carlos coming, so it was Max, George, Carlos. You had Max, Oscar, George. I had Oscar, George, Max. So no one got points there. And then in the sprint P8, I picked Carlos and you picked Lewis, and it ended up being Kimi and Antonelli. So no points there. For the actual Grand Prix, pole was Max. I had picked Max, so I got 1 point. The podium.
Can we also talk about really quick that Max did 1 lap, and that was good enough for pole because they mistimed him and he didn't have enough time to do a second lap attempt?
Yeah, Oops. He's really good. We get it.
Yeah. I mean, but podium... it wasn't done on purpose.
No, I know it wasn't.
Yeah. They actually had the same problem with Yuki in sprint qualifying.
Yeah. They were just having a weird weekend, I think, with some of that. Okay, so but the podium for the Grand Prix was Max, Lando, Charles. And I had this. I just had the wrong...
You had the wrong McLaren. You could have
the
gotten 3
wrong
points.
McLaren. I know. So you had Oscar, Max, Lando. I had Max, Oscar, Charles. So
yeah,
unfortunate. And then for P10 for the race, I had Alex Albon. You had Isaac Hadjar, and it was Fernando Alonso. I was so excited. I saw AL and I was like, oh my god, he ended up in P10. And I'm like, oh, there's an O, not a B. It's okay. And then Kathryn went through and updated our spreadsheet. So we are coming in with 6 points for Kathryn and 5 points for me. So we're good at this, guys.
Yeah.
Go team.
So the last time we talked about that, I think was like pre-Monaco. So it's been a minute since we've actually tabulated the points. I definitely did not keep the spreadsheet up and running over the summer, but the current standings are, I have 12 points and you have 9.
Yay! I'm not doing as bad as I thought.
No, we are both doing better than we thought, and this is a much closer margin than last year. It's a closer margin because we are so very wrong week in and week out.
Yeah. I wish we gave ourselves points for the big surprise and who's gonna do a dumb, because
we're
actually
so
do
much
these.
better than
we're
that.
We're really good on these ones. So for this weekend, you said that Ferrari was gonna have a good weekend. They did. They ended up on the podium for the race. I think that's good.
I even said top 5 finishes.
I know. And I had Oscar prevailing, and unfortunately he did not. He had a bit of a rough weekend. Which then goes into, my who's gonna do a dumb, and I said McLaren, and case in point, the sprint race. And then you said that McLaren's gonna screw over Oscar again. I don't think they technically screwed him over, but to your point earlier, the mental head games and everything, I think it's getting to him a bit.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, even Ted Kravitz spoke to Mark Webber, who's Oscar's driver manager, and is like, no, he's fine. And I'm like, you can say that, but let's be real.
Yeah, exactly. But all in all, pretty boring weekend.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Max fan, you're going to come out of this weekend happy. If you're a McLaren fan, you're going to come out of this weekend a little concerned. But this was not the greatest racing weekend we could have asked for.
No,
at all.
Not at all. Not at all. Okay, before we end, I already did my off-track moment of the weekend, but Kathryn, you were up to some really cool stuff this weekend with our friends over at WhatsApp. So, how was it to receive voice notes from Danny Ricciardo? Because, oh my gosh.
That was one of the really cool parts of the weekend, and fortunately was something that kept me engaged in the race throughout. And so what happened was our friends at WhatsApp invited us to a exclusive group chat from a partnership between WhatsApp and this sports media startup called OffBall, where they are working towards growing fan engagement within sports through WhatsApp group chats. So this group chat that they did, I think that they said that they're in their 2nd season of these WhatsApp chats, was everyone's favorite Danny Ricciardo, and also 2 Australian motocross supercross racers, Jet and Hunter Lawrence, they're brothers. And you sit and you watch the WhatsApp group chat pop off between the 3 of them talking, and it was pretty hilarious throughout. Like, one of the motocross guys was really ragging on Ferrari tire strategy the entire time. And it was like, when they would say on the broadcast that they're considering what to do with Charles when they pit him, and he's like, oh, I know what they're thinking about. They're thinking about putting him on wets and inters. I just lost it. Yeah.
No, that's so funny. Yeah, so Kathryn got to pretty much just be a part and see like friends talking about the race, how we talk in our DMs basically. But super, super cool. Really fun.
Yeah, it was really cool experience. It was a little overwhelming. Obviously, in these types of group chats, what you can do is you can reply to the posts that, the things that they comment in the chat. There were a couple videos. It was a lot of voice notes. But that's like, there was a lot of notifications and my phone just kept dinging. So I had to keep WhatsApp open on my computer just to like have it running so I wouldn't keep getting every notification every millisecond, it was kind of a lot, but it was also just really cool because they would ask questions about like the driver racing experience. Obviously, Danny has driven at COTA a number of times, so he talked about the track. He talked about the difference of like how the track felt before it was resurfaced, and his preferences, and even talked about like fun insights like how many tear-offs does a driver use in a race. So it was really cool to get that behind the scenes bit, and they did it for like the first half of the race, so that like you didn't have the entire race to watch and keep track of everything, but it was still a really cool experience. So thanks again to our friends at WhatsApp and to OffBall for allowing us to participate in this. There are going to be 2 more of these chats later this year. One of them is with Tyrese Maxey and Tyrese Halliburton, and the other one is with Kylie Kelsey and Caleb Heron. So they're getting some fun, interesting names related to sports that are going to be tied on to. Obviously, Kylie Kelsey is going to be talking during an NFL game. So I think it's really cool what they're doing, and I like this way of being able to get access to athletes like this. I think it's a really cool, innovative way to go about things.
No, it is. And it's a different, like, to me, it's not exactly the same, but in the same, like, vein of, like, having the Manning cast for football and having, like, Eli and Peyton talk, like, football, and they're like, oh, they're going to go for this, and this is what they're going to do because of this, and I hate playing on this grass, and this was my favorite stadium, whatever. Oh, I hated playing against this guy, he's really good. So it's kind of like in the same vein, but I kind of like that it's not an alternate broadcast. I think doing it in a WhatsApp group is really cool. That way you get the voice notes too, the videos, the text, but you still get to like watch the race as well.
It's really about enhancing like the second screen experience. And as somebody who can watch with upwards of 3 screens, it was a really cool bonus add-on to have. And obviously also having Max's former teammate, Danny had a couple funny jokes about Max that got everyone cackling.
I'm sure. Well, thanks for sharing. Super exciting. Hopefully they do this again next year. Like, I think it'd be fun to honestly have it for every race.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's COTA. That was our COTA experience. And we are now heading to Mexico, which we all know, altitude, the cars are going to change. It's going to be a whole big thing. Mexico's really cool. They have the whole stadium section. But yeah, that will be out on Thursday, most likely. Asterisk, potentially a different day, but most likely out on Thursday. Where we will go through our Mexico predictions for the Grand Prix next week. But that is it for COTA 2025. Thanks for going out. Check us, guys.